they want you to be a cute victim. Okay, if you're a cute victim, we might give you what you deserve. If you're not a cute victim, then you deserve to be a victim. You deserve to be oppressed. And it's never the same standard for everyone.
Currently, European states are pushing for a recognition of a Palestinian state. Not all of them, of course. But at the same time, Gaza is obviously going through not just the genocide, the razing of Gaza City right now. The West Bank, obviously, as we mentioned earlier on, is going through the biggest displacement since 1967. An estimated 1,000 Palestinians have been killed by settlers or the military there since October the 7th. That's in the West Bank. Do you see this recognition of a Palestinian state at this time as a positive development?
It is. I think it's a step in the right direction. I don't think that we need to overreact to it. It's not a game changer. We have to be honest about that. It's a step in the right direction because it protects the idea of the establishment of the Palestinian state. And we need to protect that, and we need to mobilize on that and to talk to, to have diplomatic protection towards that idea. And I think it's a good statement by countries who are considered as, complicit in what's happening in Palestine, and they played a horrible role. I mean, if we talk about Britain, we can talk all day about their role in the establishment of the Israeli state, the suffering and the oppression of the Palestinian people, and so on. But if we want to look forward, I think it's something that we welcome. It's a good thing. But it's not a game changer. We need to build on that. And in order for us to build on that, the next step should be focusing on one thing, sanctioning the Israeli government. And without sanctioning the Israeli government, those recognitions are not going to change anything on the ground.
It does feel like somewhat odd timing, I have to say. Like, we're in the middle of a genocide, people are being exterminated, and then you have Europeans who have the capacity to, at the very least, as you say, bring about sanctions, debating the recognition of a Palestinian state. It feels, it's giving distraction, frankly, if I'm looking at it from my perspective on the outside. I'm like, how is this the conversation at this time? Not that it shouldn't be a conversation. Many people have been pushing for this to be a conversation for a long time, but it just feels very odd that this is the conversation at this time. And in fact, here in Britain, we even had it being used as a sort of carrot and stick. Well, if you don't stop the genocide, we're going to recognize the Palestinian state. I'm sorry, what? It's very, very bizarre. But let's dig a little bit deeper into that idea of sort of what the recognition of a Palestinian state really means right now, because if your father was released from prison today, the occupied West Bank he would return to would, we both know, be very different to the place he left 20 years ago. For a start, the settler population across the West Bank and East Jerusalem, I don't need to tell you, has increased roughly 400,000 to 730,000 people in the last 20 years. The wall, the separation wall, has undergone significant expansion. The neighborhood I used to live in has been completely cut in two. Restrictions of movements have increased dramatically. And obviously, when your father was arrested in 2002, there was also widespread support, both amongst Israelis and Palestinians, for a two-state solution. Polls back then were around 72% of both Israelis and Palestinians supporting a two-state solution. Today, in 2025, 40% of Palestinians support a two-state solution, and only 21% of Israelis do. So, interesting to kind of correct those figures for our audience, who are often continuously told that it's the Palestinians who don't accept, a two-state solution. Well, according to the polls, it's a majority of Israelis today who do not. Your father was a long proponent of the two-state solution. Are there even two states to speak of today, Arab?
No, I don't think so. I think it's the idea of the Palestinian state is publicly getting murdered by the Israeli government, and they're bragging about it. I think that Netanyahu's career has been on the idea of killing the Palestinian state idea. And I want to be clear that my father did support the two-state solution in the 90s because it made sense back then. He thought that it should be given an opportunity for the Palestinian people. He started even working on it and trying to convince the Palestinian people that this is the right path. And my father supports a political solution. He's open towards other solutions. He's not attached towards the two-state solution. He's always said that the main objective is freedom and living with dignity and having independence as Palestinians. And we shouldn't get distracted about this solution or that solution. This is the Israeli way of distracting everyone. And I think, would support any solution that secures Palestinian independence, living with dignity, and dignity is the most important thing. Because if you ask, like, many of the people who are arguing on behalf of the Israeli government are saying that we had peace before October 7th. We didn't have peace.
No, but
We had a quiet oppression, that we were quiet, we were good victims for them, and getting killed every year in the hundreds, and slowly they're ethnically cleansing, continuing their project, and they just accelerated that project in front of everyone. So that's the only change that happened after October 7th.
And I mean, of course, the only other alternative to a two-state is a one-state, unless, of course, you're Trump and you talk about, sort of removal, ethnic cleansing of the indigenous population. And a one-state, so far, I don't see anyone advocating for it in a way that would not essentially just mean Israel, right? I think that the fear, correct me if I'm wrong, is that talk of a one-state solution today just basically sounds like an Israeli state.
Yeah, an Israeli state that has different levels, which is what we're living in right now. But it would be more official then, because if you look at what we're living right now, you have 7 million Israeli Jews. Those are the first degree citizens. Then you have the Palestinians who hold Israeli passports. Those are the second degree citizens. Then you could debate between Jerusalem and the West Bank if we're third or they're third. Because if you're in Jerusalem, a Palestinian in Jerusalem, you have a temporary Jordanian passport. You don't have a Palestinian passport. You don't have an Israeli passport, and you're not a Jordanian citizen. It's just a temporary document. So you don't exist, basically. You just have a Jerusalem ID, and they make you pay taxes, very expensive. They want to make sure that you leave, and they would help you. They would love for you to leave Jerusalem.
Yeah.
The fourth thing is the Palestinians who are living in the West Bank with the green ID, like myself. And we live under a pure apartheid system. Like, I was having conversation with the South African ambassador the other day, and he said that, your apartheid is way worse than our apartheid. And the other thing is that we were never bombed in our homes in South Africa. And the fifth-class citizens are the Gazans, the people of Gaza, because they were under a siege. You could never leave. You could never get in. The amount of food is controlled. The variety of products are controlled. Everything in your life is controlled. And then you went through a genocide. So these are the 5 levels that we live in on that land at the moment.
And what do you make, therefore, of this Western obsession with non-violent resistance? The idea that, of course, Hamas has to demilitarize, but even more broadly, this idea that, Palestinians should only resist non-violently to this extremely violent occupation. How do you as a Palestinian react to that?
It goes back, if you read history, it goes back to the European superior mentality on the Middle East, on the brown people, on the black people, in Africa, and so on. In Palestine, we study history. And we study the Algerian history. We study the South African history. We study the atrocities by the Europeans in Africa, in other parts of the world, the British, in India, in other parts of the world, to learn about the similarities. And that teaches you that it's all one struggle. And the struggle is coming from pure racism. And what I mean by that is that they want you to be a cute victim. Okay, if you're a cute victim, we might give you what you deserve. If you're not a cute victim, then you deserve to be a victim. You deserve to be oppressed. And it's never the same standard for everyone. And they look at Israel as a bunch of Europeans, regardless of their ethnicity, of their religion. And they use anti-Semitism as a weapon towards that. We've never had any problem with anti-Semitism. We're Semites. We've never had any problem with Jewish people. We're proud of the fact that Palestine has a history of Jewish, Christian, and Muslims all over. It's a holy land for everyone. Our problem is with one religion to come and say that this is exclusive for us. No,
Right.
it's not. And especially that if you go ethnically, you can tell exactly that most of the current Israelis are Europeans
Right.
in their descent, or even from Iraq, Yemen, Morocco, Tunisia, and so on. So I think their obsession with the non-violence resistance is coming from the fact that they can't relate to us. They can't relate to our struggle. Because even if you're a European and you're a pro-Palestinian and so on, and you understand our struggle, being there, having those feelings, being there in your home, a foreign soldier coming in, telling you not to move, telling you not to say anything as a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, these are very different traumatic experiences that you can't understand.
Absolutely.
And you can't understand my reaction when someone comes and tells me, you're wrong because you did October 7th, because you did this and that, and they don't look at the root cause. So that's what's very frustrating in having conversation with Westerners in general.